Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brett Keene from God TV Radio. I hope you're all having a blessed day. All right, so hold on one second. Let me fix this. There we go. That way that's not distracting for me. All throughout the week, I'm going to be doing live shows. There will be either a link in the description or I will post it directly to the comments. Everyone will be welcome to come in. I felt it was important to talk about something that is major to me, something that causes me a great deal of rift whenever it comes to spirituality and my belief in God. I've talked about it a couple times whenever doing a live show, just briefly. And last night I talked a little bit about it with a guy named Hudzap, and Von Helton ended up coming in, and we ended up changing the topic and going into some things, but let me go ahead and lay it out here. I've talked to some social media Christians behind the scenes about this, and a couple of them seem extremely disappointed and aggravated with me about it, because what it does is it causes a problem on how I go about the rest of my life, believing in God, how I behave towards atheists, and so on. I've decided that I need to change some of my ways of doing things. I kind of have to. As many of you know, I was a former atheist, and then I ended up making a lot of videos referring to myself as an atheist historian, and I've been kind of harsh with some different non-believers out there. Been kind of antagonistic towards them. And, well, it's gotten me into some problems. I did something unforgivable whenever I was a former atheist anyway, and that's what we're going to talk about, and it is now it's affecting me spiritually. Let's try not to beat around the bush here. I got something that's happening to me that is worse, one of the most horrible things that can possibly happen to someone who believes in God. And it's irritating for some Christians out there. I had hoped that I would get some more support and I would get more wise words from others. As many of you know, I've only been a Christian for about, I guess, 5-6 years at this point, is where the rest of my life I was a non-believer, except for whenever I was a baby. Okay, so here's how it goes. Many of you know that whenever I was an atheist, I was angry. I was angry about what was happening in my life. I was angry about tragedies that had happened, and I ended up throwing away my belief in God for a long time. While I was an atheist, and I used to make videos against religion and talk about the news and talk about various subjects, while I was debating and arguing with people, I did everything possible to make sure that it had no influence on the rest of my family members or anything like that. While I was doing the atheist videos, my son was growing up. I was taking care of my daughter, who at the time was disabled. And I would keep my door shut whenever I was recording videos, but I got too involved in the atheist community. I got to the point where I was going to churches, I was making church phone calls, and it was impossible for me to be able to completely close my children out from what I was doing whenever I was an atheist. So what ends up happening is years later, I end up working my way into believing that there's a God. And that's where we're at today. However, my son had heard some of the things that I used to say. He used to hear some of the debates. In fact, there were times whenever I went out to argue with people, and unfortunately, because my wife and I don't have like 10 cars or whatever, sometimes my wife went with me as well as my son. So my son got to hear a lot of the arguments I made in the past. He got to hear some of the debates. And I'd always told myself that just because I have a view about something doesn't mean that I'm absolutely correct. I always told my kids that. I said, look, I don't know if atheism's true or right. All I know is at that time, I didn't feel like there was enough evidence to support the idea of God. And I tried to make sure that my son and my daughter always stayed open-minded about religion and spirituality and all these different things. So I'm having a little bit of an allergy issue, feeling a little bit of burning in my eye right now. I may need to take an allergy pill later. Kind of distracting me from what I'm trying to say. I never liked the idea of children being indoctrinated, whether by religion or by atheism, because I had always held the stance, even whenever I was at my most hardcore form of atheism, I didn't want children watching me on video. I didn't want kids watching me because I didn't know what the future had in store for me. I never knew if one day God was going to give me the evidence that I required, because I'd always state to Christians, I said, if I get some kind of evidence, if I'm given some kind of something solid I can grab onto, then I will accept God. And I feel like through my experiences that happened. But unfortunately, even though I tried to shield my children and my family members from what it was that what direction I was taking at that time, it unfortunately has affected them. And it has made my life a living hell because of it. Because now my son, he sees himself as a person who is searching. He's been looking into Hinduism and Buddhism, and he's been looking in different faiths, but he doesn't really have this, he kind of finds Christianity to be stupid and hypocritical. He has seen and encountered plenty of times where Christians got rude with me in the past whenever we were having discussions, and I guess what I'm trying to say is he's got a bad taste in his mouth whenever it comes to Christianity. So when he and I are talking, even if I try to have discussions with him and try to explain to him and have him understand why it is I'm the way I am now and not the way I am then, he doesn't understand it. He's in his 20s, ladies and gentlemen, but most of his young life, he was used to, I was a different type of person then. He's used to me back in the day whenever I had the black hair and the shades all the time, wearing leather jackets and trenches. This whole, trying to bring more light and all this love and joy and all this kind of thing. It's kind of just trust me, I live totally different now than I used to. I've tried to surround myself with better or nicer type of thing going on with my personality and my way of behaving. So it's weird for him. And my daughter, she doesn't have any hatred towards Christianity. She doesn't have any animosity. But my kids, they obviously didn't go to church a whole bunch, so they didn't have that influence. And there's some of my family members who have their own problems. The ones that are religious, some of them live kind of hypocritically, where they say they believe in God, but they don't actually behave like, like the label of Christianity. So all of this has had a pretty profound impact on my son and daughter's interest in religion. And I don't see in the foreseeable future where either one of them is going to turn around anytime soon, whenever it comes to it. But here's the catch, ladies and gentlemen. Although my son and daughter do not have the same spiritual belief as I do, they are incredible kids. They are incredible. My daughter's 19 and my son's in his 20s. And my son works very hard. He does everything he can in his life he's good to his mama. He's good to his daddy. And he's a son that I'm very, very proud of and I'm very happy with. However, according to religion and according to a lot of Christians out there, if he doesn't accept Jesus Christ, then he's in some kind of trouble. Same with my daughter, according to some Christians out there. And that, for me, is eating me alive. It's like a cancer. I've spent many days and nights thinking a great deal about this, and it also makes me sick whenever I get on YouTube and social media, and I see these young kids on video who their Christian parents let them down, and had problems in the past, and then the kids themselves are angry. When you're looking on the internet and you see these teenagers who are talking trash about God and the Bible, and it's most likely because either their parents were religious and they seen too much hypocrisy, or they didn't like the church that they went to because there was too much nonsense going on up there, or their parents were skeptics themselves, and now the kids have adopted those type of ways of thinking. I need some coffee. Hold on. And because I'm as old as I am at this point, seeing a bunch of kids on the internet who are atheists, it's really hard because a lot of them remind me of my son and daughter now. They're kids that are good and they're trying the best they can. And they're being told by adults who are on YouTube that there's no reason to believe in God and all this. And it makes me very angry. I think one of the reasons why I become angry at some of the adult atheists out there is because I see myself in them. I see what I used to do and what I used to say. A lot of these people, they don't say anything new under the sun. They say exactly the same kind of things I used to say whenever I was a non-believer. And I know for a fact that whenever I was a non-believer, it influenced people. And I get to thinking to myself that whenever I was a non-believer, did I convince a lot of young people and adults that God wasn't worth going for? That religion wasn't worth their time? And that makes me wonder, how many souls did I take down the commode with me whenever I was doing what I was doing? And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why it is I do feel like I'm being punished for it. I feel like because of my big mouth and because what I did in the past, it's affected my children's desire to go towards spirituality. I've talked to some other Christians out there I was friends with in the past, and they said, "So what are you going to do about it, Brett?" And I said, "Well, I've tried talking. I've tried encouraging my family to go to churches and all that, but none of them are interested. I can talk to my kids about everything under the sun, and we have great conversations, but they don't like talking about religion, and they don't like talking about politics. They like watching movies. They like talking about video games. They like talking about something that happened in their day or someone that they're dating. They like to talk about, how they took care of their bills and they're fine. My son talks about his home and what's been going on with his vehicle. We can talk about everything, but neither one of them care about philosophy and religion. And now it's gotten to the point where my son works so many hours that his search for truth has kind of come to an end at this point. He works so many hours and he does so well for himself financially. He just doesn't have time to be able to be a part of church functions and all that. So I see him continuously getting better at what he's doing. However, the ability or opportunity to convince him that spirituality's the way is pretty much nigh. It's not going to happen. So what does this do for me, as some Christians ask for me? I remember I was talking to a Christian by the name of Smokey Saint a while back. I used to believe that that was a good guy, that he was a cool Christian who was smart, that might be able to help support me to get me through this conflict, because it's literally killing me. And the reason why it's killing me is because there's a lot of Christians out there that believe that if you don't believe in Christianity and you don't believe Jesus did certain things, then you're automatically by default going to hell. I'm open-minded to the idea that God can see into the heart of my children, and that there might be a chance that God's bigger than the Bible and bigger than all of these religions and the assertions and claims made by men and women and children whenever it comes to this. However, if you read it for what it is and what it says, and you go along with what some of these Christians say, then I would say that 90% of my family are in serious trouble whenever it comes to the concept of God and what will happen to them eternally. So now that we've gotten to that point, of course, the Christians out there wanted to know, so what does that do to you, Brett? Knowing that if it is what it says it is in the Bible, that your kids and also I should probably point this out too, my wife believes that there's a higher power, and she's doesn't have a problem with believing it's Jesus Christ, but she's not consistent with it. It doesn't really matter to her either way. Her belief is that she has a good heart and she's a good person, which I totally agree with her, obviously, on this. That, if there's a God, then she's got nothing to worry about. So this doesn't bother her as much as I'm bothered at all, because she believes that God is just all around awesome and isn't going to roast our kids or her or anything like that. And I wish that I had the same mind setting as her, but I've been around too many Christians who are constantly telling me that I got absolutely everything to worry about and everything is on the table and the stakes are high. So I guess the question at this point is, all right, if the Christians are right, then this would mean that my wife and kids and the rest of my family members are in serious eternal trouble. Where does that put me? Can I die tomorrow, stand before Judgment Day, and be told by God that everything that I love and everything I care about is going to either be annihilated because I'm an annihilationist, or I find out that I'm wrong and they get to be eternally tortured or tormented, like some Christians believe, forever, even after I've given it everything I can to try to convert my family and my loved ones over. Because let's face it, folks, if Christianity is right, and it's true that there's a hell out there, whether your soul's getting destroyed or you're getting tormented, if you really believe that, then you're going to do everything in your power to try to save people, or at least bring people to God so you can get them set right. And I have failed to do that for a lot of those that I love. And that's too much for me. As I was telling Smokey, and Smokey turned on me, as well as some other Christians, they turned on me for this. They said, so what happens? They said that, you get up to Judgment Day, you find out that that's the deal. What are you going to do? And they didn't like my answer on this. I believe in God and I love God. And I hate to do this, and it probably puts me in the same position as a lot of you, but I believe that God brought my family into my life, and the idea that he would take them away and then put them in excruciating pain for the rest of eternity is too much for me to be able to handle. So if it comes down to it, I'm going to tell you right now that if I'm standing before God and he says this is the way it's got to be, then I'm going to have to look God right in his eye, and I'm going to have to say, well, I love you, God. I care about you, and I've tried the best I can as a man, but I do not want whatever it is that's being offered here if it can't be with my wife and kids. Period. Now, some people are going to wonder, well, what does that mean, Brett? Are you saying that you're willing to allow your soul to be destroyed, to annihilationism? Yeah, that's what it means. I've always liked the idea of being able to be with God and learn everything that I can and see him in all of his glory and greatness. But I'm not willing to be a part of any of that enlightenment or transcendence if I can't have my wife and kids and all that. It's too much. It's too much. I would rather have I would rather have 50 years on earth with those I love than to have an eternity where it's just me. Let me take a drink. So that's where I'm at. However, I'm not going to stop believing in God. I'm not going to become an atheist because I have found myself in a position that's extremely unfair. I take responsibility and accountability for what I've done. I will continue to try to make an effort to get people right with God. I will continue to make videos and do live discussions where I'll reach out to people and explain to people why God is real, why it's true. But it's important for people to know that whether you're an atheist or you're religious, if you're having any doubts whatsoever, or you have any problems yourself, don't allow what's going on with you to interfere with those you love. Don't make the mistake I did. Don't go down the dark road with other people in the vehicle is what I'm telling you. If you're driving, don't take people down the dark road with you. You need to, if you need to make videos where you're talking about your atheism, make sure you tell people, I could be wrong. There might actually be a God. There might be something. There may be something beyond what I know. Let people know that. Remind them. I did. Anytime I made a video, no matter how I made an argument or presented it, I always kept people, I always acknowledged that I could be wrong. But apparently I didn't do it enough. Even though I was honest intellectually, it cost me. Because I'm a father and I was responsible for those I love. And I went down a dark road, and because they loved me, they went with me. And now I find myself on a different road, and they're on the dark road. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Just because I may not get the benefits or the rewards of what the truth gives us doesn't mean that I'm going to stop trying to give people the truth or what I believe to be good or right. And I know what some of you are going to say. Well, what kind of good God would do that? What kind of good God would take everything away from you and do this? That would, because you yourself, Brett, you say that your kids are awesome and that your wife is awesome and that you love them. What kind of good God would do that? And my answer would be, I believe that God is good. I believe I made some bad decisions, though. I believe that God's judgment is fair. And if it turns out that this is what he chooses for all of us, then my choice is also I need to be destroyed along with them. And that's that. You, as a Christian, you are more than welcome to talk to me. I have noticed that some Christians out there, it seems like you, when you have heard me tell you this in the past, it bothers you. It makes you nervous. I guess it causes you doubts. It causes you to question how God does things, because maybe you distract yourself with so many things in the world that you don't think about the fact that maybe even though you get to heaven, other people that you love will not. And that's hard for you to deal with. So you don't want to be around other people who are willing to talk about it, who are willing to put it out there like I do. But this is where I'm at. And if this means that some Christians need to stray away from me, or you feel the need to make videos insulting me, then so be it. I know Smokey Saint spent over 6 months insulting me because he said I was selfish. He said I was an idiot, and he said that I believed in God wrongly and all this kind of stuff. But, and I was just completely dissected because of this. What I really needed was a good fellow brother or sister in Christ to be able to help guide me through this very dark times, but no one wanted to do it. Nowadays, I find myself surrounded by atheists and Satanists and pagans and people of all different faiths. Just recently, I did an interview with a Muslim, and I'm hearing all kinds of different things. It's not changing my view on Christianity none, or my belief in love in Jesus Christ, but I just seem to notice that it's funny when you think that certain people should be your brothers and sisters in Christ. God sends you a bunch of people that you wouldn't even imagine that are the ones that are going to actually be your real support. Isn't that weird? The actual support that I get is not from the people that I imagine they would be, but people that I completely thought wouldn't. That's odd. Oh, I probably should have waited until a different time to make this video. I've got allergies and I've been sniffling and everything else. I'm not feeling so good. All right, so give me your opinion. And also, I hope that you all show up for some of the shows. I'm going to attempt to do shows all throughout the weeks. We hope that you've been enjoying God TV Radio, hosted by Brett Keane. When you get an opportunity, check out our public radio station. Check out our books, music, and art. You can also buy t-shirts if you would like to support us. If you don't want a t-shirt, you don't want books, you don't want music, well, you could always do a one-time donation through PayPal. Any support is appreciated. God bless.